What's up, guys? Welcome back for the best rogue guide. This is going to be covering from 50 to 70. If you want to do 1 through 50, I have the guide already out for you, which I will link down below. But this is going to be kind of a continuation and going over the pieces of gear and showing off some gameplay at the start, because most of this video is going to be about min-maxing, choosing the best options to make your character stronger, and also in the defenses department to be more powerful as well. So starting right off, we're able to clear out 88 Nightmare dungeons. You can see my character's level 70, and I want to explain some of the things that were frequently asked in the previous video as I was reading your guys' comments. So starting right off, one important thing that I want to go over is the rotation and how you survive. So how you survive with this, it really comes down to being able to knock down the enemies consistently. Watch this group of elites that you'll see me fight in a moment here, and a lot of times I'm just kind of focusing in on elites. I'll also go over like kind of the best areas to farm for XP, but pretty much what it comes down to is you're seeing my ultimate. A lot of people have been asking, how is your ultimate like up in like 2 seconds? I don't get it. It comes down to make sure that you copy the build exactly when it comes to the skill tree. So what happens is when I'm hitting my enemies with twisting blades, that gives me cooldown, and there's another key passive that gives me extra cooldown reduction on my ultimate, or essentially it's all traps. The poison trap, what it does is it knocks down the enemies. So I'm spamming the poison trap and I'm spamming the other ultimate, which is Death Trap. We're using Death Trap to group up all the enemies first. So the correct rotation is pop your ultimate, which is Death Trap, then you pop your poison, and then you just spam Twisting Blades. That's the correct rotation for this build. And if you do want to apply vulnerability before you get one of the glyphs, which is called exploit, then you will actually have to apply vulnerability, of course, manually. But eventually you're going to be able to get what's called exploit, and it's super good. And again, watch this next engagement on these other bosses. They will not really be able to hit us because watch, the boss knocked down again. We're knocking down this quad attribute elite over here, and they're just, as soon as they come up, pretty much just knocked down again. Now, obviously on world bosses, you're not going to be doing this, just as a heads up, but that's the reason why we are able to do so much damage as well as not take any damage. It's because the enemy just gets knocked down again and again. When they're knocked down, they're going to be taking more crit. So again, I wanted to open up with some gameplay because most of the times with this video, it's going to be mostly like, you know, how-tos. And so I want to start off with some sort of exciting content. So now let's go into the pieces of gear. So ideally, going from 1 through 50, you're going to be obviously getting towards tier 3. Once you get tier 3, you're going to be getting what's called sacred items, and eventually you'll get what's called ancestral items. At this current state, we are at level 73. I've got every single piece of my gear ancestral, and I got every single piece of gear 5 out of 5. So in terms of attack power, and sometimes people are mentioning this, why is your attack power so much higher than mine? Or some people have even asked, my attack power is higher than yours, how come you do more damage and you're killing these bosses faster? It comes down to a few different variables. What does the monster have for its tag? Sometimes there's increased health or the other modifiers that are on the dungeon, but don't always use this number. This number, there's a lot of things that won't be 100% accurate. And this comes down to just knowing Diablo, as well as just being able to be efficient with how you play your build in terms of your skills. Now, some of you guys also came down into the live stream wondering, why are you swapping certain skills? So it kind of depends on your playstyle. You can play a lot of different variants of other builds that you see, depending on the build. For example, like we have to run Twisting Blade, we have to run Death Trap, and we have to run Poison Trap. Honestly, the rest of the skills are kind of optional. Sometimes I do like to mix it up, but for the most part, in the part 1 video, 1 through 50, I explained you can mix up a bunch of skills. This is one thing when you play Diablo, and this is something that I get asked quite a bit when I'm doing like leaderboard pushing. So like I've played lots of the Diablo games, whether it be like Immortal, like in Immortal, we were ranked 2 for the leaderboards for PvP. And then on top of that, in this season for season 28, we were ranked 2 for Demon Hunter. And it really comes down to just knowing how to play Diablo. And I'm going to show you guys how to play Diablo versus just giving you something to copy and paste, because a lot of this information can be transferred over to other characters when you decide to play other characters. So starting out, the most important thing in terms of gearing going from 50 to 70 is really just to get the items to be higher item power. So one thing that's very important as you climb up, so anywhere from like 50 to 60, you can still be running some of these sacred pieces of items, and the difference between a sacred and an ancestral item are going to be its item power. This has the highest potential for the big rolls. You see this item over here, it's giving us up to from 425 to 920 life. That's like kind of the range on which it rolls. Another frequently asked question is like, mine doesn't show that, how come yours does? You got to go into options, and then you go into gameplay and make sure you have this tick, which is advanced tooltip compare and advanced tooltip information. This will make it so you can see where the items roll. Another thing I want to go over is actually min-maxing, and this actually may be updated very soon in a patch. Armor in this game is significantly more value than resistances. If you play Path of Exile or even Diablo 2, Diablo 3 did resistances, it matters, but like not as much in the sense where like you just get a percent value. So resistances actually work a lot differently in Diablo 4. And the reason why is because in the resistance department, usually you'd want to try to get like 75 all res. In this instance, you actually get a huge amount of value by getting dodge. Dodge is one of the best stats in the game. We actually increased our dodge to like 30% via a different skill tree. On the skill tree, after we activate a skill, we can't activate a skill in town, but it gives us extra dodge chance. Basically, dodge chance is actually very, very effective on the rogue. It gives us insane survivability. Don't skip out on the stats. One of the most valuable things. This is actually a thing I haven't seen a lot of content creators talk about. And this is going to make you way, way, way better at the game in terms of survivability. So look for items that can get dodge chance versus resistance. Normally, like in most Diablo games, well, it's specifically like Diablo 2, you want to get 75 all res, and Diablo 1 that kind of helps out too. Or like Path of Exile, you want 75 all res. In this game, armor is way more valuable because it reduces the damage that you take from basically most abilities in the game. So non-physical damage, it says in the second part, non-physical damage taken is partially reduced according to your armor contribution. If I just have dodge, we just don't take any damage. This is massive. This is one of the most underrated stats in the entire game for rogue. Now, other classes will have fortify, and there's, sorcerers has barrier. This is what makes rogue so strong, is dodge chance. So getting your dodge chance is kind of key to your survivability. Now, in terms of damage, you're really looking to roll for items that have specific rolls. So if you're getting sacred items, you can look for these rolls on the item, because before, it's kind of just like green number, go up, right? Item power go up. When you get into the ancestral tiers, this is the most important thing, is you want to look for items that have specifically 725 item power. When you get the higher item power, what that allows you to do is get the maximum roll of the stat. So in this case, we could get potentially up to like 12 crit strike chance, where like an item with a lower power level will never be able to reach these numerical stat values. So that's very, very important. Another thing is, how do you min-max in the end game? Because pretty much what it comes down to is being able to farm efficiently, as well as knowing what to farm. So eventually you're going to have to do your what's called the renown. So this is over on the map where you're just getting all your Paragon points. So eventually you'll start to do this when you're going from 50 to 70. You want to start trying to complete this, get your Paragon points. This is part of your progression. The altars of Lilith is also very helpful, but I have a guide that we just made, so check out the video. I'll pin it down below as well, which goes over all the altar Lilith locations and explains the difference between a red altar and a regular altar, which is actually pretty big, especially at the start of hitting level 50. So the next thing I want to go over is basically all the pieces of gear, what you're looking for, because in terms of gameplay, the gameplay doesn't change. What you're looking for is just bigger numbers, as well as knowing what numbers to hit. So there is a thing called damage buckets. Basically, the ideal thing is to do is make sure you get some crit hit chance, crit hit damage, as well as getting vulnerable damage. And then there's a big damage bucket where it comes down to like damage that are affected by poison, as well as other stats in the game. But pretty much you want to try to get your items earlier on to have all of the stats that you want -1, because you can go to the occultist and re-roll one of the items stats. Now you cannot do this with uniques, and uniques are also kind of like bad. This is one thing I want to mention. A lot of people think that, okay, brand new Diablo players, okay, well, I got a, legendary item, but after legendary, it must be the unique items, right? These are the most powerful. No, that's not always the case. Sometimes they could be good, but a lot of them will roll with certain things that may not matter for us. For example, like movement speed is good because it's just nice and feels good, but on top of that, getting crowd control duration, is that helpful? I mean, sure, it's okay. The slow duration reduction is okay, but I'd much rather have? I'd much rather have dodge chance, as well as getting our resource cost reduction. Those two stats are actually a lot more valuable than other just stats in the game. So it depends on, of course, your build, but for the most part, don't worry too much about getting a unique item. This is one thing. Like someone's like, dude, I just dropped a wind force. Should I equip it? No. Having your bow imprinted, any of your two-handers with the perfect rolled twisting blades is going to give you way, way, way more damage because it's a twisting blade build. So starting right off, what are the important stats? I'm going to go over the important stats really quick that you're looking for on pieces of gear. Remember, one of the stats can actually be bad, and you just take it over to the occultist and you re-roll one of the stats. If you actually, I should show you guys this, because earlier on you don't need to do this, but you need to do this for your late game. This video is supposed to be 50 to 70, but this works all the way until 100. This is the main thing that you want to focus in on if you want to be min-maxing, if you want to be like high ranked in the game. This is what you got to do. You got to take your item and you want to go ahead and put it in the enchant slot. What this will do over here is you can re-roll one of the stats, so you can see the range. Like if I keep on re-rolling this, maybe I can get the extra stat. This can get very pricey. You can see right now if I was to re-enchant this, it's 800 850,000. And this is where gold becomes very valuable late game. So you do want to reroll your items, but remember, one of the stats can be bad. So I'll go over what I mean by that, and I'll go over the stats that you're looking for on pieces of gear. So eventually you start off with sacred, and then you can reroll one of the stats if you want to, and then eventually you want every single piece of gear to be ancestral. So first legendary, you know, you have the powers and the aspects, which will also have in the pinned comment a best of the aspects guide that you can just go ahead and get. Some of these you do want to actually remove via the extract aspect. So you want to extract the aspect because that will always give you the higher value. If you imprint it via the dungeons, like you complete a dungeon, and this is another frequently asked question, where do I get the Twisting Blades one? That one is in Jalal's Vigil, but I'll have a guide video that goes over all of the best ones in the game that are generic. So like the ones with like the barrier protection, these ones are great as well. But you want to make sure that all your pieces of gear, once they're ancestral, you imprint something on it. There's always going to be like one thing that's pretty decent, minus the boots. The boots is probably like one of the weakest ones, but this is what you're looking for in your pieces of gear because this is the main focus part of the video, because again, you're just basically doing content. What I recommend, do Hell Tides. Hell Tides are very important because they give you Fiend Roses and Forgotten Souls. You need to go over here and do this, and you definitely want to open up the chest, the mystery one that's 175. It gives you multiple legendaries, okay? Or in this case, it'll be Ancestrals or Sacreds, okay, as you're progressing. Again, Ancestral is better than the Sacred, but you want to make sure you always do the Hell Tide. These are always good to do. You're going to need to have materials when you're going to be upgrading your gear to go 5 out of 5. And remember, you want an item that has 725 item power minimum to be able to upgrade so you get the highest number of attack speed, crit strike, twisting blades numbers. Like, you want to make sure the item power has 725. But yeah, if you just get an item that drops, and let's say it's just a regular sacred or just a regular legendary, you could still save it to extract the aspect and imprint it on an ancestral item. Even though if in the aspects it shows these different colors and rarity, it doesn't matter. I don't even know why they did that. Maybe it wasn't originally planned, but they just removed it. I don't know why they're color coded. It doesn't make sense, but that's a very good tip because some people think that you can only use ancestral crafts on ancestral items. The answer is no. You can get whatever rarity, it doesn't matter. But the important thing, a lot of people wondering, where is the best place to farm? It's actually Champion's Demise. So Champion's Demise, this is one of the best farm routes right now in the game. If you guys want the most XP, this is the best. Obviously, playing in a party is one of the best things that you can do in Diablo, but Champion's Demise, this is the one that everyone's currently farming. Another strategy that some people are using is they're just farming this bottom PvP area. If someone gets annoying, they just try to chase you and they're killing you, then well, you might have to go do something else. But I don't really recommend doing this. I frequently get asked, what's the best XP method? If you do the same dungeon again and again and again, you're going to get tired and bored of the game. So my suggestion, just kind of play the game. If you're in this Helltide area, you can double or quadruple dip. You can get a quest completed while you're also killing the enemies to get your Grim Favors while you're doing the Helltide to drop cinders. Think about playing as efficiently as possible. Like in this one over here, the quest wasn't here. Okay, it happens sometimes. But I got maybe a quest over here. I could do a quest while I'm getting my bonuses with the cinders. So try to double dip into these things. That's very efficient. Another thing is, again, eventually you're going to need to get your renown. But I want to go over the pieces of gear now because I've been talking about this, and this is the most important part of the video. So starting right off, as far as your helm goes, all your pieces of gear, life right now is one of the best stats. Surprisingly, resistances are pretty bad. I'm not going to go in depth on this, but basically you want some resistance, but don't try to get an insane amount of resistance because you get diminishing returns on them on top of the world giving you diminishing returns as you progress in the world tier. The easiest example that I can show you guys is, so see how this says 51 lightning resistance, right? I'm like looking at my lightning resistance 40. Okay, well, if I take this off, what the heck? What's my lightning resist? So I go from 40. Whoops, that's the wrong item. So you can see we get 21 resistance if I remove these, but this gives us 50. Normally you would think, okay, well, 21 plus 50, that's 71. Like, why is it adding up wrong? You get diminishing returns when you change into the world tier, and I think that there's also other diminishing returns. If you played the previous Diablo games, you get like cooldown reduction, attack speed. There is certain breakpoints where you get less. So you actually may want to scale armor over that. I actually prefer scaling dodge, but that's not the easiest thing to roll. But that said, think about this. So starting right off, in terms of your itemization, for your helm, you want to get cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction and maximal life are the most important stats. The rest, ideally, you get all the stats that can be used. Strength, honestly, is kind of like a nothing stat on this one, but it does reach certain breakpoints, potentially on your Paragon board, which is something we'll talk about in a moment. But you definitely want to get cooldown reduction and life. That's like your two main goals. In our chest piece, it's just anything that would give you damage. I'm going to go over that kind of next, but resistances, they're actually kind of like mid for defensive stats, but getting damage reduction, that's totally fine. Getting cutthroat. Basically, all the skills are usable. By the way, rubies in every single thing. I know people are putting in topazes. The difference is some people like to play with certain things, and like I've already showed you guys, we're ranked 2 for this season of Diablo 3. And I can promise you guys, there are a lot of people that will do certain things and everyone will start to copy it, and it doesn't really matter. You don't have to run rubies. You can run, ideally right now, a lot of people are doing topazes, but I like to scale my life to be higher. The reason why is because we get to get healed as a % of our life when we crit. So the more life we have, the more we actually heal for, if that makes any sense. But by all means, if you want to put in topazes or any discrepancies between like the build, like some people are like, dude, this guy reached level 100 first, he must be better. Sometimes it just comes down to playtime as well as also efficiency in the game. But if you look at a lot of different builds, sometimes people will play with different things and it's up to you. But I highly recommend you got to play Twisting Blades, you got to play with Death Trap, and you got to be playing with Poison Trap. The rest of the skills, choose whatever fits your play style, right? Whatever feels better, because at the end of the day, whatever you're having more fun with is going to keep you in the game a little bit longer. But anyways, chest piece, yeah, cutthroat skill damage is okay as well. As far as lucky hit, spreading that, it's like a whatever. It's just something that I had. It doesn't really matter that much. Also in the helm, we have this basic skills grant damage reduction. This you actually want. This matters. And you don't have to put this one in the helm. Some of these you can put in other slots. It doesn't really matter. Next up over here, this has plus ranks to Twisting Blades. You want to get plus rank to Twisting Blades. You want crit strike chance. Those are the two important stats. You can also get cooldown reduction on traps if you want to roll it. If you get lucky, like honestly for me, like the primary resource is okay too. So that was like a nice extra bonus. Pants, ideally, you want to try to get dodge anywhere you can. So if you can get dodge, that's the most valuable stat in the entire game in terms of like what you are looking for. And then we got some extra damage reduction from distance, some close, and dodge, and then total armor. Total armor is great. The barrier one is really good too. So get that barrier special legendary power. And then for our boots, I like the Shadow Step additional charge. If you get the Penitent Greaves, these are great boots as well. That gives us a little like ice, trail. Gives us some extra damage, but ideally it just gives us some movement speed. This one over here, I'm still trying to roll some movement speed. I thought at first like it's got a triple res. Wow, that's great. I actually just wanted this because of the dodge, but I want to ideally get movement speed as well as dodge. I prefer max evade charge versus when you evade, you get to move faster. Just makes the game feel better, honestly, for me, but that's kind of subjective. Again, it's up to you, and if you go copy someone's build, it doesn't really matter if they're running max evade charges versus like the evade for more movement speed. Okay, so this one's actually one of the most important things. On your two-handed bow here, you want it to have specifically, again, 725 item power, but you also want to look for these things. It doesn't have to be these specifically because you can get things that are different. Like, for example, this one is damage to enemies affected by trap skills. That one's good. Dexterity, that's good. Damage to crowd control enemies, that's good. Core skill damage. All of these are great. Or you could get like other things that would still work for whatever build that we're going for. So, or enemies that are taking from damage over time. Anything that would fit into the category, vulnerable damage, bonus damage after you dodge, any attack speed, like you can get that on gloves, core skills, cutthroat, any of these work, okay? You don't have to get like vulnerable, this one. It's just, you want any of the ones that work. Some of them will roll higher than others, but don't look for the perfect roll at the start. Here's what I would recommend from 50 to 70. Just get all of the things to have something that your character benefits from. -1, again, you just take it to the occultist, reroll whatever stat was bad, or the lowest roll, or something that's like completely useless. Like if we got bonus damage to frozen targets, I have no freeze in my build. It's worthless. I roll that one off. So that's what we're looking for with our weapon. And then for the amulet, I ideally like to get movement speed, cooldown reduction, trap cooldown reduction, energy cost reduction. That would be the best. We have some damage reduction. This one has the imprint of the armor. I think this is one of the best imprints. I like putting this on my amulet because it gives us the most survivability. Ideally, we would have the imprint from the dungeon. We'd have like an item that we extract the power from, and then we just throw the aspect right on top of it. As far as our rings go, this is the most important thing with your rings. You want to ideally get life and crit strike chance. If you can get those on both, I mean, I got lucky. I got both my rings to roll perfect crit strike chance, and they both have like decent amount of life. So that would be what you're looking for. And the item power, again, 725 is what you're looking for. As far as the resistances on the top, they always roll res, but like it doesn't really matter too much. Right now we got vulnerable, crit strike damage. So this one's okay. And also physical damage is good. We actually do our damage with physical, and like if you want to run the like imbue with poison, I guess poison is not that bad, but most people have dropped the poison imbuement at this point in the game unless you're doing like, some bosses, because it kills basically fast enough so you don't have to like consistently activate that. I personally prefer Dark Shroud over running extra damage because I like that extra crit strike chance. That 8% is massive, on top of getting another 8% with the Shadow Step modifier on the tree. And then for our weapons, I am running just a weapon that has critical strikes with core skills increase our attack speed, and then running making an enemy vulnerable has a chance to actually grant increased critical strike chance. I like these ones. Again, they don't have to be on a weapon. Some of these you can throw on your gloves. They're all swappable. Now, as far as the rings go, the only one that I think is important is getting the imprint for dodge chance. This one you're gonna have to get as a drop. It's kind of rare, but nonetheless, this is one of the best things in the entire game. Just the extra 8% dodge chance versus enemies affected by damage from time, which of course we're doing poison with the trap. It's so valuable. Not only do we gain extra resource, but on top of that, that 8% dodge chance, that's basically 8% chance you just don't take damage. That is massive in the game. Again, the reason why is most of the things in this game, if you like understand the game at a very late level, you'll notice that the enemies, it says like based on level, right? Okay, so armor here. So a lot of the things in this game, as you climb higher in content, it's based off of your level, right? Where like you have just a flat dodge chance. If I go to dodge, it says that as the stat increases, the bonuses become less effective. However, if you just are taking no damage, you just take no damage. It doesn't give you diminishing returns in terms of like the value. If you dodge the attack, you dodge the attack. Whereas armor, it gets worse as the level of the whole game increases in terms of like the monster level. So that's why dodge is very, very powerful. Again, you're probably going to get some diminishing returns. I don't think you're going to be able to get 100% dodge. The game probably caps you out at some point. I don't know what the current cap point is. My guess is at some point probably around 75. That's it's like that in like the previous Diablo, like in D3. But nonetheless, in the other category over here for the legendary power, I have killing a vulnerable enemy, which we're always going to apply vulnerability. We got some extra resource regeneration, but there's nothing super important to mention other than, of course, you just need twisting blades. Now, this is like something that a lot of people have been asking in terms of Paragon board. And the thing with Paragon board is you cannot copy everyone's Paragon board because there are certain stat points and certain things that people will reach as breakpoints. So to explain this really quick, in terms of the Paragon board, I'll give you guys my Paragon board, okay? But the thing is that you may reach certain breakpoints and you want to focus in on upgrading your glyphs in terms of getting the extra radius, because as you put more points into them, you're going to be able to get extra bonuses. So this part is more so about actually what are the best glyphs versus copying the tree, because I may need to get, like, there might be a point where like I might get a random node for like 5 to 10 strength and you might not need it. Then the reason why you might not need it is the yellow nodes will be able to hit a threshold on once you reach this amount of strength, dexterity, willpower, intelligence to give you another bonus. So don't always copy everyone's tree, but you can use it as a guideline. The more important thing to see is like, well, what are the legendary nodes that they're taking? So here's what I'm personally taking as a start, and I'm going to change it later as I'm going to be able to get different glyphs and level them up, because certain ones will not be able to hit a certain radius until you get them to level 15. So this is just what I'm using for now. I will probably update it, so keep in mind if you see it and it happens to change, it's because I've reached a certain level where I get an extra radius, therefore I can actually socket the one that I want, because I really want one of them called Turf. Okay, so going over the best ones, and I made a dedicated video for this, so I'm going to go over this really fast, but if you want more in-depth explanation of how the whole Paragon system works, you want to get ones that your character can benefit off of in a radius, because some areas will have different amounts and it depends on the class that you're playing. But basically, this is what you want. You want to get closer. You want to get exploit. These are the two core ones, okay? We're talking 50 to 70, so I won't go too far. We'll just go like 3 Paragon boards is fine. So basically, you want to go ahead and get these two are incredibly, incredibly important, okay? So closer, just damage reduction. And then this one is one of the best ones in the entire game. Every single class has it because it's so good. If one class had it and another one didn't, it just automatically applies vulnerability for 3 seconds when you hit them. It's got a 20-second cooldown per enemy, so it's really good. So you want to put this one in a 1 that has a radius on 3, because the radius eventually goes to 4, but on a 3 radius that hits that strength requirement, and this board happens to hit it. Some of the legendary powers are better than others. Some you don't even need to get. And then, so I went and got no witnesses, and then I went ahead and got tricks of the trade. Later, I'm going to respec out of it. It's just because I want this one right now, where we can run chip, because I happened to roll this one earlier on, and I just happened to like, okay, I'm going to socket it. But other ones that are great, I think combat is really great, being able to restore on crit. That's good. And sometimes you may want to think about what Paragon nodes are actually going to be good for other things other than the glyph socket and other than the legendary node. And maybe you really want to get like some extra damage reduction because you need it. I wouldn't say you need to copy this Paragon board like point for point. Again, I'm going to give it to you guys because it's like 50 to 70, so you at least have something. But in the 100 one, it's going to be a lot different. It's just sometimes you want to do certain things as placeholders, and some things actually got nerfed in the middle of the game, and I didn't want to respect the whole Paragon board. To explain what got nerfed, everything that was revolved around attack speed. So if you played this game and copied my earlier Paragon boards, you may want to change some things, because originally all of the attack speed nodes just got nerfed. They literally cut them in half, and then all the yellows got changed. So I'm going to change this Paragon board. I'll at least give you guys something so you guys aren't completely lost in the dark and don't feel like this guide adds more from 50 to 70, but so you at least have it. And I do want to mention again that certain like nodes, like I'm just hitting this one, even though it'd be faster just to path through, I needed it to hit the node so I can get that extra change. But when I increase the radius, I may not need to get that, if that makes any sense, because I might be able to push and grab another node that's way better and gives me another stat. So I know this video has so much information, but there's not a way to make this faster. And I know there's just basically mostly it's just talking about like, okay, what pieces of gear do you actually look for and what stats you're looking for on your pieces of gear. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for the 50 to 70 guide for the best rogue guide. And then we will also update on once we get to like 100, we'll be making it like 70 to 100 or something like that. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe to the bell if you want to see the next part of it. And if you guys have any suggestions, as Diablo is an evolving game, and sometimes I do learn things from you guys as well. Let me know down below if you have any questions, and I'll definitely answer it in the next part or just in the comments. Take care. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.